Hey everyone! My name is Sarah Johnson and I'm a pediatric occupational therapist and part of the infant development team here at Emerge Pediatric Therapy. I am here today to talk about the mini milestone of kneeling and how that impacts your infant developing their crawling skills. There are 3 different types of kneeling. There is short kneeling, where your infant is sitting back on their feet, tall kneeling, where they're raised up, and half kneeling, which is a transitional position between being on the ground, either in sitting and kneeling, and pulling to stand. These positions go from easiest to hardest. So short kneeling is the easiest. This is typically what infants do first. And in this position, they're starting to engage their hips and they're engaging their core. Tall kneeling, which is what we're going to focus on today, engages both the hips, keeping the legs in, the core, keeping the body upright, and also the arms, because infants are working on pushing on their arms to maintain this position. This is why this is a great position for crawling, because it's working on all of the different components that are engaged in quadruped crawling. So you're working on the hips staying in, the core engaging, and the movement and pushing through the arms. And finally, half kneeling is working on both the hips, the core again. It can work on the arms a little bit, but it's also working on the balance and coordination aspect from progressing from being on the ground to standing up and working on walking. How do we know that an infant is ready for working on kneeling? What I look at first is the basic sitting skills. Is the infant prop or ring sitting well, and have they been introduced to a side sitting position? The reason why I like a side sitting position is because they're already working on engaging their lateral core. It's also really easy to get into kneeling from side sitting. So sometimes infants will kind of go into it themselves, and that can be a great way to introduce it. So typically I'm introducing tall kneeling between 7 and 8 months of age, so that we can work on all of those precursor skills for crawling. So how exactly do you help your infant get into this position? First, let's talk about the ideal position for tall kneeling so you know what you're looking for. For tall kneeling, we want the infant to be off of their feet, engaging both their hips and their core, and pushing through their arms. So we want a surface that is tall enough that they have something to push onto. If something's too low, they're going to kind of hang out on it here, and we're not going to get as much core engagement. So we want something that's tall enough, but is also engaging, so it's maintaining their attention and they're able to stay in tall kneel and not kind of pop down and go back and forth. Here are a couple ways I work on it at the clinic. I really love working with a vertical surface, and this can either be something like a walker or it can be a magnetic surface such as your refrigerator that has different toys on it, a window. Sometimes I'll even have families push a cookie sheet up against the wall and use the magnetic piece of that. Anything that's upright so your infant can push onto it, but also is long enough so that infant has space to reach all around and they're not just in one area. So I like to have our infant here. So they have a lot of different things they can engage with. There's a lot of room upward, which will encourage really getting into that tall kneel position. Another option can be, and it's dependent on how tall your infant is, how tall the box you have is, but another option can be something like a box. Sometimes I'll use like a plastic one, or you can use a diaper box or an Amazon box, but same idea. The infant would be pushing through here, and then I could either have a toy on this surface or something right on top, depending on how far down they were and kind of what the height difference is. So those are 2 ways you can work on it. The main thing we see with tall kneeling is that infants want to stay kind of down more in this short kneeling position, and typically at first have a hard time engaging up into that tall kneel. So what I work on with that for infants is having toys that are higher up that catch their attention. So this can be a great option for a spinner toy, a suction toy, or even beads. So when they're kind of down here, a lot of times there are pieces of the toy that can engage with here, but I'll have something higher up that'll encourage them getting up, let them play for a minute so that they're engaging it, and then a lot of times they'll stay in the position and they won't bop back down. But a lot of times it's that initial pulling up into the new position that's the most difficult for infants. And once we kind of can entice them to do that, the rest of it falls into place. When I'm working with infants on tall kneeling, I start off just doing short periods of time, like 2 to 3 minutes a couple times a day, and then build up their tolerance as we're working on other pre-crawling skills. Hopefully this has been helpful with going over another mini milestone for your infant. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much.